It's a game of resilience. How long can you survive? There's a fallacy that founders have this grand vision at the beginning. They write up the master plan and then they go execute the master plan. And in reality, there's never a master plan. Yeah. Building a business is basically just putting one foot in front of the other for decades at a time and basically not running out of money. The riches are in the niches. Yeah. And so we didn't have the biggest audience. We had the hedge fund manager allocating to Bitcoin. Having 10 of those people for our sponsors and advertisers was more valuable than having 10,000 22-year-olds who had just graduated.
Your advice for a first-time founder would be to start like a very niche B2B business and just curate the top 50 people in a very specific industry.
If I was 23 and starting over, I'd...
So Jason, appreciate you taking the time from flipping eBay cards as a kid to $1,000 side hustles in college. You're here. You welcome me into the studio at your $130+ million company today, running it. It's insane. So I appreciate you letting me interview you.
Yeah, man. This is the first recording in the new studio. Actually, you're breaking it in. No one we'd rather have in the studio. So.
Oh, dude, you're putting a lot of pressure on me to make it go right. But sweet. No, yeah, I love it. I think let's just dive into it. Let's start from the very top. Yeah. You've got a very entrepreneurial family. I think it's super interesting. I think you said no one in your family, like your parents haven't had a 9-to-5. Your mum and your dad, I think, are still entrepreneurs. Yeah. Like, tell me about growing up as, a kid in this family of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I didn't realize... So I grew up in California. I was born in Boston, grew up in California. I didn't realize at the time that... I think my family, it was kind of a counterculture family, right? Very into the health trends before they were, before Brian Johnson was talking about them, very into not really working a 9-to-5. Yeah. My dad started a company when he in his late 20s. And, since then I've only, seen him run his own businesses. My mom started a company I think in her late 20s or early 30s and sold that. And so that's really the only thing I've known. So myself, my sister doesn't work a 9-to-5. My brother doesn't work a 9-to-5. I think it was always just programmed in us that, not even consciously, it's not like they were telling us don't get a 9-to-5, but it was very much programmed in us to be, I would say, counterculture, anti-system, kind of the system, and just, that the path could be what you wanted it to be, and that you could kind of just go do things in life. And as long as you put in a ridiculous amount of hard work, those things hopefully would work out.
Yeah. I mean, that explains your curiosity, flipping eBay cards as a kid. No normal kid does that. Just because it's possible and you thought hey, I can make better photos. I think you've told the story where your mom was he just picked up these eBay cards and started making better photos, started writing better copy and started flipping them online. That's not a regular thing kids do.
Yeah. I think, I did all these things before Blockworks that were what people would consider very irregular, abnormal for a kid to do. But I think looking back, I was just chasing the ability to go build something and to go build it online and to not work in the traditional system, right? So you mentioned eBay cards, right? I would buy these eBay cards. I'd buy these, I think it was MLB Showdown cards on eBay. I would buy them. I would find the MLB Showdown cards that had bad marketing, bad copy, bad pictures. I'd buy the cards. I'd get them, I'd bring them home. I'd take better pictures of them, rewrite the copy and upload the exact same card onto eBay for twice the price, for double the price. I was trading FX currencies in college. I was, did this thing called Verve, which ended up,
we're going to get into that.
In hindsight, probably a pyramid scheme. But, when I was 18, I didn't really know that. So I've always been chasing the kind of the high of building something and making an impact.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about college a bit. I know, first of all, I think something really interesting, and I love history as well, and you went to go study history. I think that's not the traditional entrepreneurial path, right? It's usually something very high technical, hey, very alpha, let's go. But I think it's super interesting you studied history. I want to talk about that a little bit, and then we can talk about Verve, which I think is super fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually probably counter your take of that most entrepreneurs are very high powered or study finance or something. In my experience, so I studied history. My co-founder, Mike, studied classics, actually. Mm-hmm. So do not get him started on Roman and Greek. Culture and mythology and stuff like that, or you'll be go down a rabbit hole. But I think if you... entrepreneurs are trying to find their own path in life and do something that is different. Right. And the most traditional thing that you can do... All right, I went to Emory, which was very I'd call it pre-career. Mm-hmm. It was pre-law, pre-medical, pre-med, pre-law, and very business, I would call it. So probably 95% of my friends in school, they were either studying finance, they wanted to go into banking, and then eventually go into private equity. They had that path lined up. They wanted to go be a consultant, or they wanted to go be a lawyer, or they wanted to be a doctor. And I remember sitting down, you had to select a major. I think it was by at some point sophomore year, and the thought was basically, if I choose finance right now, I'm choosing the path, right? I'm choosing the path. If I choose history, which was my love, it is basically signaling to my brain that I'm going to pursue my curiosity for the rest of my life and not chase short-term profits.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So not being tied to that path where it's like, if you did go and study finance, like, all right, this is then the next 3 years, then this is where I'm going to get a job. This is what my life's probably going to look like in 10, 15 years. And that's not necessarily the curiosity, different path you want to go down.
Exactly. And I figured I'd be doing, big quotes around this because I didn't even know what this meant when I was 18. But I figured I'd be doing business, for the rest of my life. And, if I was paying all this money to go to this nice college, I might as well actually study what I wanted to study.
Yeah.
So
I think that's awesome. I think, probably because of the way you were growing up, like I feel like a lot of people I've talked, and I've obviously not talked to super many people, but feel the pressure from parents potentially to not do that or like not follow that curiosity. So that was probably helpful, I'm guessing, in actually being able to choose for yourself in that scenario.
Yeah, I think I'd proven to my parents by my I call them online ventures, hustles. Right? Yeah, by the side hustles that I was very self-motivated and that I could do something online. I tried to drop out of college my sophomore year. I was making roughly $1,000 a week.
Insane.
When I was 19 from this online venture thing that we can talk about if you want to go there. But I think I'd proven my worth, if that's even a thing when you're 19, but proven that I could hustle and proven that I was motivated and knew how to build businesses online, which in hindsight ended up being very impactful for Blockworks. But,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, let's talk about that. So you didn't want to work at Taco Bell and you wanted to earn some extra money when you're at college. So that's sort of where Verve comes in, which I think you mentioned something which we'll talk about later is like you've learned so much from Verve, although you wouldn't let your kids do it. Like I want to talk a little bit about that. I think that's super interesting. But talk to me about the aspect of just being in college and making $1,000 a week, or like talk to me a little bit about what is Verve? How'd you get into it? Like I think the kid above you, a year above you, talked about. Like let's talk about Verve a little bit first.
Yeah. I have a love-hate relationship even with talking about this because, in hindsight, it was a pyramid scheme. Like just to be very blunt and upfront and candid about it, like in hindsight. But, I only learned that as I got older and got more experienced and a little wiser about what this was. So the backstory was my, when I graduated high school, I was 18, I wanted to make some money. Summer, my friends were all hanging out at the park and stuff like that. I wanted to make some money. And my mom said, go get a job. She said, your friends are working at Taco Bell, go get a job at Taco Bell. And that for me, I don't know if it was a pride thing. I don't know if it was a Taco Bell thing. That was the last thing I was going to go do. I think it was probably realistically the 9 to 5 thing. I wasn't just going to go start working. Yeah, exactly. Get kind of compressed into this 9 to 5 system of going to work for the man and making 10 hours of, $10 an hour and stuff like that. And so I refused to do that. Around that time, I had a friend who was a couple of years older than me. He had just come back from college and he said, look, I've got this thing called Verve where it's an energy drink business. It's just like Red Bull, but you see these ads on TV about Red Bull gives you wings and what Red Bull actually spends billions of dollars on marketing and advertising. This company takes that budget, the billions of dollars that they spend on marketing and advertising, and they actually funnel it into the people promoting the products. So instead of buying billboards and TV ads, they actually funnel that money back into people promoting the products. I said, great, what do I got to do? He said, you got to go get 2 people to sign up for the product. You can kind of see where this goes. I was too prideful, I think, to bring it to my friends. And I've always been conscious of I think just, I don't know, I've always liked probably having people like me or being social just like normal. I was going to college. I didn't want to get a bad rap in college, right? New school.
Guy,
you don't want to be that guy. So I ended up learning how to do digital marketing and online marketing. And I learned about ClickFunnels and I learned about landing pages and I learned how to build a website and I learned how to run Facebook ads. There's no TikTok at the time, and Instagram, you weren't really running ads on Instagram at the time, but I really just started to master online marketing. How do you post on social? How do you write ad copy? And this ended up leading to So I started building that when I was 18. By the time I was, end of sophomore year, so I built it all of freshman year. End of sophomore year, I was making, about $1,200 a week. It was $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 a week.
Yeah.
The company had given me a BMW for being one of the highest performers, and I had a little embarrassing to talk about this at this point, but I had 4,600 people in my quote unquote downline.
Yep.
And that was the story of Verve, and that was the story of like basically learning how to sell. It taught me how to sell, and it taught me how to do digital marketing at a really, really young age.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things during that time were also still like being discovered. So the fact that you're able to master it that early, that's super sick. Yeah. When I read about that, 4,000 people down your funnel, like people in France, people in...
I was jumping on, I would get a call from this guy, or I think his name was Aurelien, who's a French guy, who was kind of the leader of my French team. And I think he was like 30 or 35 years old at the time. And he would text me, he's like, hey, like I've got a packed room. I forget what we called them. There's a name. We had like code names and stuff, or if it was 50 people or 100 people or 300. And he'd text me and be like, can you jump on Skype? And I would
these people.
I was skipping class every day. I was staying up till 4 a.m., to talk to people at all these like odd hours, and, people in the Philippines and, in Singapore and stuff like that. And I'd get on Skype, and I was like little, 19-year-old in the dorm room. And I'd be like, it's all, I mean, tell them about the vision of this energy drink, healthy energy drink. And
Dr. Oz says it's great, guys.
Dr. Oz, you had all these like lines that we said. And again, in hindsight, not the best way to do something. But you mentioned this thing about would I have my kids do it? I'm very torn on if I would let if my kid was doing Verve, would I let them do it? Because on one hand, it's a pyramid scheme. Yeah. And I think there's a large group of people who would say, I would never even consider letting my kid do this. It's illegal. It's like illegal. Exactly. On the other hand, I've got many founder friends and friends who have built companies, and I think you've got some awesome interviews lined up for the rest of your trip. And I know some of the people that you're interviewing quite well, and all of them, not 90%, all of them have done something that to the general public seems like a scheme. Right. Some weird thing. They've made money in a weird way. Maybe it's playing poker online. Maybe it was mining Bitcoin in their dorm room. Maybe, and kind of milking the energy from the college. Yep. Maybe it was this Verve. Maybe it was trading crypto when they were 19 or something. Like, all of them have done this kind of counterculture thing that to society seems like a scheme. Right. And, it is a scheme in a sense. It was not a long-term sustainable thing, but it's like the lessons that it taught me. I don't think Blockworks would be here today if it weren't for some of those lessons. Right. I'm very torn on it. Yeah,
that's super interesting. I mean, I guess, as long as your intention, I think the intentionality is probably the most important thing. Like, are you doing this because it's the most curious thing? And you're like, hey, I've got this way to make $1 here, and like this funnel thing I'm just learning about. Like, I think as long as you don't get carried away with it, like you obviously stopped, right? And sort of saw the light, I guess. Yeah. And you weren't there to, be malintentful. I think that's super important. But yeah, I can see your point of like, not everyone, like, you didn't want to be known as the Verve guy on campus for a reason, right? Like, you didn't want to go around promoting.
Yeah. And it's like, there's only, there's two very cheesy quotes that come to mind when we talk about this. It's like, there's the, I don't know if you've seen the Steve Jobs, I think it was the 2005 Stanford commencement speech, or 2010 or something. He says, everything makes sense in hindsight. All the stars end up aligning. Yeah, all the dots end up connecting in hindsight. And for me, I mean, I remember junior year, I must have been probably 21 at the time. My roommate said, basically you got to grow up. We're getting we're getting internships in investment banking. We're going into finance, and you got to join us, and you got to grow up and stop doing this thing. And I took his advice at the time and stopped doing it. But at the time I was like, why did I just spend 2 years doing this? That was so schemy. And I started to realize what it really was. But now in hindsight, it's like all the stars start to line up. And then the other thing that comes to mind is like, I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but it's like, there's no such thing as failure as long as you're learning from each thing. And that is what something like Verve, I think, is for me, was just one massive learning. Right. And, it ended up being in 2017 when we were getting Blockworks off the ground. We had to post on social a lot. And why did I know how to do that? Well, it's from the 2012 like digital marketing learnings. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm gonna skip over you going to Hungary. We can touch on that a little bit later when we get to Blockworks. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting. You talked about, you've just quit Verve, right? You're like, okay, what did I just spend the last 2 years doing? My friends all getting jobs. You end up getting a job straight after college. I want to talk about that phase just because it's something I was recently, and it's like, you're done with college, your friends all moving to a place, like you're moving to New York. Like, talk me through that phase of not knowing necessarily like what the exact next step is. Like, what was that like moving to New York, and what decisions did you have to make?
I moved to New York with 5 of my best friends. All of them except for me worked in investment banking, right? So I was the outlier, and it was one of the only times I think in my life I've ever felt embarrassed, because they all got this job paying, I mean, the ridiculous salaries right out of school. It was like $100K.
That's insane.
When you're 22, which was like, more money than God basically. And I think my first job I was making $1,500 a month. I'd get the boss would give me a check. It wasn't even, online. It was literally a physical check, $1,500 a month. And then I made money from commission for the rest of it. And that was a period in life where I knew I wanted to build something online, but I didn't understand how the game worked. I didn't understand Twitter. Like, I love that you're on Twitter and you're posting. You understand the game. I didn't know the game. I didn't know you could how to raise money. I didn't know how to break into that world.
Right.
So I remember I took the GMAT to try to get my MBA. Got a high score, and I was like, should I go get my MBA? What should I do? And that was that first year in New York was very much a like, my mentality that year was like, don't say no to anything. Do not say no to a single thing. Actually, the first 2 years in New York was like, just don't say no to a single thing.
Right.
I have no idea what I want to do. And just basically keep every door open. And eventually I think it's really important in life to completely 180 that, and to go all in, and to not hedge it all. But at that point in time, that was really the first year in New York, was just go to every event I could attend. Anytime someone invited me to something, say yes to that, and just work my ass off.
Yeah. Just keep getting skills. And I think I think one thing I would struggle with, and I think I'm even still struggling with, is like, how do you really focus on saying yes to everything? And then when do you know it's time to double down, right? Like, when do you know it's time to say, okay, this really is the opportunity I'm most interested in? Like, does it just slap you in the face, or?
I don't know if it slaps you in the face. It's basically, I think at the beginning, I think you're just out of school. It's like, for me, when I was 22 and 23, it was kind of a journey of jumping from one thing to the next, where I knew my first job was wrong, right? I was making 100 cold calls a day, which again, really great in the moment. Horrible. Yeah. Tried to take time off for Christmas. Boss said no, that's the best time to make cold calls, right? So definitely a big, and at the time was really a tough experience. In hindsight, taught me everything I know about sales and cold calling, and realized you can cold email anyone in the world and they'll maybe will respond. But for me, those first like 1 or 2 years in New York was basically jumping from thing to thing, trying to find something that felt a little more right. So let's say the first job I was working at this kind of merchant bank venture firm, trying to get LPs to invest in the fund and in our companies. That was, I'd call it 20% right. I actually knew that venture was really interesting, and it gave me an eye into tech companies and finance and how that kind of worked. But I knew I didn't want to be on the investing side. I really realized very quickly I didn't like investing. So that was 20%. But I was like, oh, tech is interesting. That's what led me to go join a tech company called Sisense, Israeli tech firm, had raised like 100 million. They were going to market in the US. And I joined that felt like 40% right, 50% right. So I was like, oh, tech is the thing I want to be doing. Started to find my footing, but realized, okay, now I'm getting put into that 9-to-5 mold. I need to break. This is if I don't go start a company now, I'll never start one.
Yeah. So you're at Sisense, right? Like, I think you grew the sales team, where you were part of that, like from 2 to 24 or something insane like that. That's insane, by the way. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, we were having fun. I had the best mentor. Is like definitely the best mentor in my career at the time was this guy Cooper, and he brought me on to be the first sales rep, basically,
with no qualification, or barely.
I mean, my qualifications were I knew how to make cold calls. And And yeah, we hired like 22 or 23 or 24 people in the span of a year in the New York office, started an Arizona office. And yeah, it was amazing. It was like, that's where I learned sales. That's where I learned like you can go talk to 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old executives and they'll listen to you if you have a really valuable product that solves their pain point.
Yeah, 100%. So during this time though, you're still, like you mentioned, right? Like you're still, okay, this is 40% correct. Like what, you really do know you want to start a company. You go into these meetups. There's one meetup specifically you go to where there's two talks, one by Sam Ovens and one on crypto. Like talk to me about that meetup that you went to.
Yeah. You've done a lot of research. Very, very impressed. Yeah. So I was going to all of these things. So there was something called Brunchworks, and New York is New York is the greatest city in the world for this, right? San Francisco is maybe a close second. Something like maybe London or Miami would be a distant third. But there's nowhere better in the world to find what you actually want to do than New York.
Right.
And so I was going to events every night, and I was going to events on Saturdays. I was going to events on Sundays, and at like 11 or 12 every Sunday, there was this thing called Brunchworks, and they'd feed you, they'd give you brunch. And by the way, you can Brunchworks, Blockworks. You can actually see where you can
see that
from. Yeah. And so they'd give you brunch. They had talks.
Give you a great name.
Yeah, and there was a talk on Ethereum, and I was pretty into Bitcoin at the time. Didn't really know about the whole industry. Didn't know about crypto. Just was into Bitcoin, and went to this talk to hear from the CMO of a company called Consensus, which was kind of like the BD arm of Ethereum at the time. And this woman, Amanda Gutterman, was speaking. And I got there an hour early and heard from this guy, like you mentioned, Sam Owens or Ovens, I forget his last name. And he talked about how to build a consulting firm.
Yeah.
So I went, listened to his talk about how to build a consulting firm, then went to hear about Ethereum for an hour. Mind was immediately blown. That was like actually you mentioned, like, does it smack you in the face? Like this, that was really actually the first like slap in the face moment I had, which was Ethereum. I want to dedicate my life to this for the next, at least 10 years. I mean, I didn't know really at the time, but I was like, this is what I need to be working on.
Yeah.
Consulting was the way to work on it. There was zero passion for consulting.
Right.
The passion was Ethereum and crypto and Bitcoin. So I came back. I was living with a couple of friends at the time. I said, let's go launch a consulting firm.
You're crazy.
Yeah, let's go launch a consulting firm for Ethereum. And again, most of them were bankers. Actually, 4 of the folks I was living with at the time were in investment banking. And they said, absolutely not. We're making all this money doing banking, and we got these fancy models and discounted cash flows and all this kind of stuff. Ethereum doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
It's a scam.
Yep.
And one friend was crazy enough to say, all right, let's go do this. And his name is Mike, and he's now the co-founder of Blockworks. He said, let's go, I'm in. And the original idea was, consulting for like help, Walmart and Disney move on to the blockchain. And we woke up the next day and Mike said, hey, Jason, look, unfortunately, I think this is a horrible idea, basically. We are 23 years old.
Yeah.
I forget if it was 23 or 24. We're 23 or 24 years old. Nobody's going to trust us.
Right.
We first, before selling consulting, we need to build trust.
Yep.
And we said, okay, well, I was like, I'm going to all these crypto events. They're really scammy. Bunch of 22-year-olds yelling, Bitcoin's going to bring down the banks. We got to bring, eventually, one thesis that we got right was eventually the space will become this big institutional asset class. It's going to be a bunch of gray-haired folks coming in.
Yep.
They need a more trusted source of information. What if we went and started hosting events to talk to the Goldman Sachs, the family office, the sovereign wealth fund crowd, instead of talking to the 22-year-old Reddit and Twitter crowd.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of Blockworks.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, looking back, like connecting the dots, right, to your point of the Steve Jobs quotes, it's hilarious how obviously like no one's going to trust information from just Reddit and Twitter if you've never even been on those sites, right? So definitely the thesis was right. I find it super interesting. You've talked a little bit, you guys started out hosting like dinners and things like that, right? Before, I want to talk about your first big event as well. But talk to me a little bit about those dinners. Like, how did you go about that? Was it just cold emails, cold LinkedIn? And then what was the thesis behind setting up those like dinners, like, to educate those people?
Yeah. So actually, what's the date today?
Is it 26th, 25th of February?
Okay. So our first event was February 27th.
Yes.
Of 2018. So we're, I guess this is the either today or yesterday or tomorrow is the anniversary. Yeah,
let's just pretend it's today.
Today. That makes the story better. Yeah, exactly. Today is the anniversary. No, we when we were talking through this idea, it was December of 2017, and the market had just gone parabolic, right? Bitcoin had run from 1,000 to 20,000 that year. Yeah. It was just, pandemonium. Yeah. And we realized that some of the events we were going to were starting to make money. Mm-hmm. We didn't know that you could go raise money. We didn't, and so we just said we need to build a profitable business. We got to make more money than you spend, obviously. That's how you build a business. And so we said, look, let's give ourselves 90 days. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was 60 days. Let's give ourselves 60 days, sprint at this. Yep. We both had full-time jobs at the time. Let's call it December 27th. We booked a venue for February 27th. And we said, let's go build this like institutional crypto event and kind of fake it till we make it. And so, we both had full-time jobs. We would both wake up at 4 a.m., pour a pot of coffee, walk out to the couch, sit on our laptops, and boom, fire into actually LinkedIn. Yep. We'd pull up LinkedIn. We'd created an Eventbrite page, and we'd say, look, we're hosting this institutional crypto event. Got these people from Goldman Sachs speaking. Tickets are $50, but for you, my dear friend on LinkedIn
that I haven't met,
I'll give them to you for $20. Yeah. And we probably cold messaged, I don't know, 10,000 people.
I think more. I think probably more.
Yeah, probably more. Yeah. If you do the math, and we got 210 or 220 people to come. Yeah. Made $11,000 top line, spent 6,000, 5,000 to the bottom line. We thought we were rich.
We're in business.
Right? Yeah, we're in business.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time we each had about the same amount of money in our bank account. Mm-hmm. I think he had $4,500 in his bank account. I had 4,000. We put it all into the company, into the event, and boom, we were off to the races. So we did that. Next event was May of 2018.
Mm-hmm. May 10th.
Yeah, exactly. May 10th of 2018. And we thought we thought we were unstoppable. We actually lost money on that event. Yeah. And to this day, it's still the only event that we've really lost money on, and we were panicked, right? Because a few days before we had just quit our jobs. May 1st, 2018, we had just quit our jobs, and we were panicked and terrified. And we basically just said, look, let's host a few more events. This is it.
I hope it figures. Yeah.
I hope it works out. And if it doesn't, we can go get jobs again.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, also, like, to your point earlier when we were talking about Verve, like, you just told everyone you're quitting your jobs, you're going doing this crypto thing, and then you lose the money. Like, that must have been insanely scary.
There was a lot of, people thought, people thought that we had no clue what we were doing, because we didn't. We didn't have any clue what we were doing. They were right. But there was actually a lot of, much more judgment than I think we ever thought that people would have around this. It was from friends and family and all ex-colleagues. There's a lot of judgment around, like, you're hosting events in like cryptocurrencies. Yeah. And if you remember, the market had just topped the third week of December in 2017. Yep. So we were riding that straight into a bear market. Yeah. People thought we were crazy. And it's actually something I think about a lot, because there's actually a lot of, I think people, when they start companies, end up getting a lot more support from strangers than they do from their close friends. Mm-hmm. And it's something you might get, I remember we'd post on LinkedIn and Twitter, and actually we didn't even know about Twitter then. We would post on LinkedIn, and people would say, congrats, and this looks awesome. And then our friends were saying, this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. And so it's something I really try to do now, is anytime a friend launches a product, a business, I'm the first buyer. Right. I'm the first person to text them saying congrats. And it was just a good life lesson, I think. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about this later, like on philosophies and stuff. But you've mentioned before, like, unless you're a founder or an entrepreneur, unless you've built something, like, it's a very unique experience, and it's not very comparable to a lot of other things. And like that journey, it is quite lonely.
It's it wasn't lonely because I had Mike as a co-founder. Right. It was extremely every day that you are on this path of building a company is further you get from like the traditional 9 to 5, I would say. And the amount of stuff that would happen in one day as a founder, I think, is the equivalent of maybe a week or two of working in a traditional finance job or traditional media job or something like that. And so and it's a game of resilience. Is like building a company ends up just being a game of resilience, and how long can you survive? And so
hopefully, if you're working in a bear market, that's resilience at its peak.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So, your third event, you messaged Pomp. I want to say this quote. I think it was hilarious when I read it. He said, I want to talk to you about how you got Pomp first of all, like that was awesome, and then convincing him to come. So he says, this is about the event. He says it was in a little, sketchy part of town. There was a second there I was like, I may be walking into a complete scam. These guys might try to kill me. And then he noticed there was food and he's like, oh, okay, they must know what they're doing.
I forgot Pomp said that. Yeah. So Pomp, we realized nobody knew us and nobody trusted us. And like Pomp said, he thought, are these guys going to kill me? No, we were hosting these events, but we had no business hosting these events. And so we said, how can we basically bring credibility to our brand and get people to trust us? I see. Okay, we are now in the business of bringing bigger names than us and bringing experts to the table, and that is how we will basically use other people's credibility to bring credibility to Blockworks. Right. Or I guess at the time we were called Blockworks Group. Yeah. And that we just went after the biggest names possible. And at the time, this guy, Pomp, had I think 70 or 80,000 followers on Twitter, which to us was this massive. He's the biggest finance celebrity out there in our minds. And so we emailed him like 8 or 9 or I think probably 10 times. And on the last I think the 10th time he said something like, I'm in Japan, I'll be back in New York. If you stop emailing me, I'll speak at your damn event. Something along those lines. And I said, also, can I get a ticket for my girlfriend, who is now his wife? And I said, yes, you can get a ticket for Paulina. And amazing, I'll stop emailing you. But here's the event. I think it was June 26th or July 26th. And we realized at the time we had to really decrease our costs because we had just lost money on the May event. So we got the sketchiest loft in Chinatown, actually, right when you get off the bridge from Brooklyn. Really shady, sketchy loft in Chinatown. And we didn't get sushi. We got, like we did the first event, we got really crappy food, some chips and stuff like that, and some dips. And we just brought, I remember it was Martin Garcia, Mike Buscella, Pomp, and one other person to the table. And they were all these credible, trustworthy folks. Right. And, ex-Goldman and ex-Barclays and things like this. And that event that's when we called that event like the institutional crypto or something like that. That's when we realized, the niche here, the way that we can break into this industry is institutional crypto. Right. There's a gap in the market. If we try to take on CoinDesk or Cointelegraph or any of these big players, we won't make it. We have to capture a niche and own the niche.
What made you think that? Is it because of the people that were speaking at the event, the types of profiles, and like
you can when you have product market fits with something, it doesn't just have to be a product, like event market fit or whatever it is. Right. It will slap you in the face. It will pull the demand. The demand will get pulled out of you. Right. And the demand was not. We pushed the supply onto people for the first 2 events. This event, because it was just focused on finance and capital markets, the demand got pulled out of us. And we started, instead of giving discounts, we didn't have to give discounts. We ended up doubling the prices for the next event, which caused even more demand. And that's when we realized, like, okay, all these big businesses, right? Facebook started with just the dorm rooms at Harvard. Craigslist started with just meetups, in San Francisco, actually. eBay started with just, I think, Beanie Babies or collectibles or something like that. All of these big businesses, they started by owning a small niche. Right. And for us, we said, what is our niche? Our niche is institutional events. Yeah. And every year of Blockworks is basically just a story of layering on more and more and more, going after another niche, capturing that niche and adding it to basically the portfolio of Blockworks. Yeah,
I love that. We can talk about that in a bit, like, the House of Brands idea and, sort of going niche and not just wider each time. I think that's super smart and something I don't think a lot of people do, especially as they grow, right? Like, you're trying to grow a company, like, okay, we just go wider is like, I think the default. Yeah. But going niche is really interesting.
Well, it was also a force, not having money is a forcing mechanism, right? So if we had went and raised $40 million, we probably would have tried to do that. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why raising money for media historically doesn't work. Right.
You have to go big in that case.
You have to go big. The problem with that is media is one thing. Right. It is trust with an audience, and you can't throw money at. You can't use money to buy trust. No. So you have to do it for years and years and years and years, and that's why media companies get acquired, and oftentimes you can't build them in house is because you can't build. Like if Bloomberg went and tried to build a crypto arm, so they've tried many times, they're not going to be able to do it. Promise you, they're not going to be able to do it because the industry doesn't trust them. Right. So you can't use money to buy trust, and so That's actually why I think for anyone listening to this who's thinking about building a media business, as I know you are, even if the money's on your doorstep, I wouldn't go raise that money.
Yeah.
Until you start maybe building out the product at the bottom of the funnel.
Right.
But we can get to that.
Yeah, you guys are doing that now, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about that. I love all these takes. It's so fun. Let's talk about podcasting. So, Pomp comes to this event. He's basically like, hey, I want to run this podcast. Jason, can you help me run it? And you say yes, even though you have no idea what to do.
Yeah. So we had a newsletter that I wrote on Sundays. It went out every Sunday, and it was like the weekly crypto update or something. And it was just an aggregator, no unique takes. And we would auto add, I guess at the time, maybe not GDPR compliant looking back, but we would auto add anyone who attended our events, including the speakers, to this newsletter. And 2 weeks after auto adding Pomp to this newsletter, he emailed us. I remember this so specifically. I was sitting at my desk in our apartment, and Mike was in the room over in his office, in his bedroom. I was in my bedroom, and he was in his bedroom. And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Pomp just emailed us." He said, and the email was like, "What do you guys do? Would be great to meet and learn more." And we were freaking out, right? We were running in the living room, like, "Oh my god, Pomp wants to meet us." We had one either no employees or one employee at the time, and the employee was like Mike's friend from high school, who would come to our living room and stuff, and we would pay him on Venmo. And we go into his office. He's like, "Look, I want to become the Joe Rogan of business. First step of that is building a podcast. Do you guys know how to build a podcast? Do you want to do it together?" I looked at Mike. Mike looked at me. We said, "Absolutely, we do." I knew nothing about podcasting, obviously.
Yeah.
Went home, Googled how to create a podcast. Turned out you could use 99 designs to create a cover image. We had a friend from college who was a DJ. He created the intro, outro music. I spent 20 hours and 3 days learning how to edit using GarageBand, and boom, we Googled like the mics, buy some Shure mics and stuff like that, and off to the races. And so we told Pomp yes, and that was a smashing success.
Yeah, so you're getting into podcasts. I mean, I think you've said you didn't even consider Blockworks like a media company at the time until like 2021.
Yeah,
which is hilarious, considering
we didn't know. Yeah, there's this maybe one thing I'd love to talk about is I think founders, and I know you're interviewing all these founders who are 10 times more impressive than me, and they've got these multi-billion-dollar businesses or IPO'd or whatever. And,
right.
I think there's a fallacy that founders have this grand vision at the beginning, right? That they sit down, they write up the master plan, and then they go execute the master plan. And in reality, when you talk to these people, I think what you'll find, and what I found, is that there's no master plan. There's never a master plan. Yeah. And building a business is basically just putting one foot in front of the other for years, and actually then decades at a time, and not failing, and not basically not running out of money, and just being resilient. And so for us, today it's really easy. There's a really nice story we could tell, which is we wanted to build the Bloomberg for crypto from day one and build a media business. And in reality, what it more looked like is we wanted to stay alive, and we wanted to keep building good products that the industry wanted. And we loved the industry, and we love creating content, and we love bringing people together. And so we launched with events, then we launched with podcasts, or then we launched a newsletter, then we launched a podcast. Right. And then we woke up one day and 80% of our revenue was coming from events. We said, what are we doing here? And then COVID happened. 80% of the revenue went away. And that's when we realized we had to build this media business. But I just want to touch on that because I think I see these tweet threads about like the grand vision of all these companies. There's no grand vision. It's just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I love that. I think this is why this is so cool. And I've got a lot of value out of just researching how Blockworks was started, right? And I think hopefully that's what the podcast can achieve too. It's like, you started with events, but you didn't even necessarily do institutional events until that third or fourth one, right? And so it's just a path of getting there incrementally until you sort of figure it out. And I mean, I guess you guys are probably still doing that to this day, right? So
still doing it. Yeah. Still doing it. Gonna do it, for decades
today,
longer.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's super important because, it is 2020, like, 80% of the revenue does drop. And I think Julie and Mike, you're going into the city every day, like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How are we going to get more money? We've got these podcasts kind of going. So I think that's really interesting. I want to talk a little bit about during this era, like, you're sort of running these podcasts, you're becoming a media company at this point, right? When did you guys figure out you actually needed to own the IP? Because a lot of the, you cut off an arm basically that was giving you pretty good money and that was generating a lot of money. Like, how did you go about that? That seems like a tough choice.
So every year at Blockworks, there's like one or two like big thorny, like big meaty problems of the business that just suck up all of our time and attention. And in 2019, it was that. So the Pomp podcast, maybe to give a little background, Pomp podcast ends up being really, really successful.
Right.
And, we went from, in 2018, we made $200,000 top line. 2018, let's see if I get this math right. 2018, 200K. Then in 2019, we 10x that to 2 million.
Yep.
We're like, oh my God. And that was because of the podcast. 2 million. 2020, 3.5 million. We're like, oh my God. So it was coming from the podcast. And the podcast, the reason for it was we started partnering. We basically copied this playbook that we had done with Pomp, which was we'd go to these big influencers with big names. We'd launch podcasts with them / for them, right? Ryan Selkis, who was running a company at Masari at the time, is no longer there. Meltem Demirs and Jill Carlson, Charlie Shrem, Scott Melker, these huge influencers in the industry. And we'd go to them and say, hey, you've got this big following. Why don't we launch a podcast with you? And we would do a very simple revenue split, 50-50 rev share.
Yeah.
We would edit all the shows, edit the video, sell the ads. You're the talent. You get 50%, we get 50%.
Show up.
What ended up happening, because we knew nothing about media, is we didn't structure the deals correctly. We didn't know. We never actually sent a contract to someone. We didn't.
It was just handshakes.
Handshakes. All these were handshakes. And so what ended up happening is they would say over time, hey, this show's starting to make real money. I've got more leverage than you guys. I think I should get 60% and you guys should get 40%.
Right.
6 months later, I think I should be 70 and you guys should be 30. I think I should be 80 and you guys should be 20. And that was really tricky for us because we didn't understand how IP and how leverage between a company and talent really worked. We didn't understand how Barstool worked. We didn't understand how someone like Axios structured their contracts with journalists. Like we didn't understand how any of that worked. And so what we ended up doing is at the end of in 2020 when COVID hit, we actually were 80% of our revenue was coming from events, but that obviously got wiped away because of COVID. The rest of the revenue, the thing that was keeping us afloat was podcasts with these Charlie Shrem and Pomp and these folks. We actually went to all of them in a 1 month period and fired all of them. We said, and we did it a very nice way. We said, take your show, right? Scott Melker, Wolf of Wall Street, he still got the show that we created. Pomp, the Pomp podcast, he still got the show that we created. Charlie Shrem, he still got the show that we created. We said, this IP is yours, take it. We're done with this we're done with this agreement. We need to launch shows in-house. We need to own the IP. The hosts need to work at Blockworks. And that was the start of, at the time, it was one of the scariest, maybe the scariest things we've ever done, because we basically reset our revenue. Again, the events revenue had gone to zero, and the podcast revenue we were saying we're bringing it to zero, and that was scary. Yeah, but that was a necessity for what we needed to do, which was in 2020 we realized we needed to become a media business. January 12th of 2021, we launched the actual media business. With a in-house newsletters. In-house podcast. We rebranded from Blockworks Group to Blockworks. We launched the editorial site. We'd hired the journalists. Everything needed to be in-house. We needed to own the IP.
How soon after you made that pivot, you work on the rebrand, you pay a lot of money for it, you're launching all these things, you're trying to hire new people. How long after that did you really start to feel comfortable? The revenue's coming in now. Were you generating revenue from day one that you did the relaunch, from those newsletters and podcasts, or? We
were, because so events started to come back in 2021, but also we had hit a nerve with the industry in a good way, which was there was still no good, the block existed and Decrypt and Bankless was just getting started and CoinDesk and Cointelegraph, but they were no one was doing a 10 out of 10 job at covering the industry from an institutional lens. Right. And that was our bread and butter. We said, look, there's all these capital markets players, family offices, hedge funds, macro funds, liquid funds, venture funds, sovereigns, endowments, big allocators, single family offices, multifamily offices, RAs, financial advisors who need to learn about crypto. They don't want to go they don't want to go read Cointelegraph. They want to read something that feels buttoned up. So we hired people like, Casey, who you met earlier today, from Bloomberg, and these great journalists and reporters. And we covered the industry from an institutional lens. So if you were So you asked about, to tie this to get back to your question, you asked if we were making money. If you were Coinbase or Gemini, you had to spend money with us because let's say you're BitGo and a big custodian, you want to reach the hedge funds. There's no Facebook ad that you can run to go reach, liquid hedge fund allocating 100 million to Bitcoin. There's no way to reach them. You can't go spend that money with Bloomberg, CNBC. Nope. There's no events that had that. There's no Facebook ad you can run. And so we're the only shop in town where you could do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, again, to your point earlier of like when there's product market fit, like you'll know.
Niches, the riches are in the niches. Yeah. And so for us, like we didn't have the biggest audience. Our audience was probably 1/100th of what something like CoinDesk was at the time. Right. But we had the powerful audience. Yeah. We had the hedge fund manager allocating to Bitcoin. Yeah. And that was having 10 of those people for our sponsors and advertisers was more valuable than having 10,000 22-year-olds who had just graduated college.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think you either said it in 2021 or in 2022. You said the strategy for Blockworks at the time, you said this was always going to be more niche, to go more niche for each customer. I think you probably kept doing that, with the house of brands, going niche and serving them. Do you think you guys have still kept doing that to this day, or?
Yeah, we will always keep going more niche. So there was a really pivotal moment in time for us in 2023, like trenches of the bear market. And I know I'm kind of jumping around chronologically here, but trenches of the bear market. Everything was down. Page views were down. Across the whole industry, right? Yeah. Prices were down 50%.
Ads are down.
Ad dollars are down 50%. Page views are down 90%. Yep. Nobody's listening to the pods. Nobody's reading the newsletters. Yeah. So if you're a media business, what do you do? There's a leadership meeting. Everyone's having the same meeting. What do we do? What do we do? What all the other media brands did is they said, we need more views. We need more eyeballs. Let's go basically dumb down the content. Instead of, we were all doing like 201 level content at the time. All of our competitors went to 101 level content, right? They started writing pieces like, what is Bitcoin? Right. What is Ethereum?
Like
right.
Those people don't care anymore.
And they were going after, Google search traffic, things like that. We took a different approach, which again, actually at the time, it doesn't feel scary right now, but at the time it was a really scary decision, which is we said the most powerful group of people are the crypto natives who have stuck around and are building businesses on chain in the industry, and the investors who stuck around too. And so we said there's all this interesting stuff: liquid staking, restaking, right? DEX volumes were growing, that kind of stuff. We said, look, let's talk to the audience. Let's write for that audience instead of trying to dumb down the content. Let's make even more niche content. I remember we wrote a liquid staking report. We're the first research team to publish a liquid staking report. It got 47 views. 47 views, right? Yeah. If you were another media company, you saw 47 panic. Views. I mean, it's panic. But the 47 people who were reading about liquid staking, they said, these are the smartest people in the room. Yeah. I've got extreme trust in this brand now. And when the bull market came back, those people had deep loyalty and trust and valued Blockworks as a brand, and that's what ended up leading to our house of brand strategy, which we could talk about.
Interesting. That's so cool. I love that. It's you're providing value as opposed to just like, hey, can we just get more views? It's like, no, let's actually figure out who's. I mean, it sounds very basic in retrospect. Like, you're a media company. Let's figure out who's reading this. Let's just try and be as valuable as possible. And obviously, the further down funnel you can get, like the more value you can capture and deliver on. Yeah. Talking about let's talk about a little bit about you guys raising money. Yeah. I think it's really cool. You only raised from 3 people, which I think is very unique. Why did you decide to raise money? I think you raised in 2023. What was that process like? And why did you because most media companies, to your point, like you don't want to start off by raising money. Yeah. And I think the fact that you guys did it sequentially is really important. So what was that decision like to actually go and raise that money at that time?
So 2020, we realized we needed to build a media business. 2021, we launched the media business, and revenue really started booming. Right, we had gone from 200K of revenue to 2 million to 3.5 million to 12.5 million to 25 million. Right, things were starting to really get big on the media side. We realized that long-term media is a horrible business model. Actually, it's a horrible business model. We said, let's go. What should we do? Should we do a SaaS business or something like that? We said, actually, no. SaaS is also a horrible business model. We looked around at all the SaaS businesses, both in crypto and outside of crypto. We said, SaaS is a horrible business model too, right? You go raise $10 million, 100, let's say you go raise $100 million,
Mm-hmm.
50 million goes into product and engineering, 50 million goes into marketing and sales. Customer acquisition cost is too high to sustain the business. You get stuck on the VC hamster wheel.
Yep.
So we said, well, what is a good business, right? If media sucks and SaaS sucks, what's the good business? And we said, we spent a lot of time thinking about this and looking at this. We said, there's a model that looks basically media by itself, tough, SaaS by itself, tough. Combine the two, you've got a business where you have a product at the bottom that drives really sticky, high multiple, really valuable revenue in ARR.
Yep.
And at the top of the funnel, you've got the thing that all SaaS companies want, which is the distribution and the audience. And you're not only is your customer acquisition cost for the SaaS business nothing.
It's profitable.
It's negative because the media business is actually making money from sponsorships and ads. So the media business is getting paid to build an audience. Then you can drive that audience into the software product.
Yeah.
And we call that a negative. We call it negative customer acquisition cost. If you built out a CAC model, we have a negative customer acquisition cost. So we get paid to acquire customers.
Which is insane.
So at the time we said, okay, let's go. Thankfully it worked, but at the time we said this is the vision.
Right.
We need to go build a research and data platform. We had just launched the research platform in May of 2022.
Yeah.
We said we think the value is going to be in the data. To build a data platform, you need money.
Yeah.
And the media business was spitting off nice cash flow. I think in 2022 we did like maybe 6 or 7 million of EBITDA. So it was spitting off nice cash flow, but we needed a little bit more. So we went and raised 12 million at the $135 million valuation from these investors. And there was a really conscious decision that we made, which was instead of media is about trust, right? In one word, media is about trust. Our biggest fear with raising the money was that people would stop trusting us, right? Because
sellouts, like your different incentives.
Now you're owned by the VC. I don't know the narrative, but like maybe you're owned by the VCs or like you're not independent.
Yep.
So we said, let's go talk to some of the most there are 3 people who we trust the most in the industry, who we've known for years, who we trust the most. It was Michael and Vance at at Framework Ventures. Why do we trust them? We had hosted a podcast with them called Bell Curve. They were the co-host of one of our podcasts. It was Santiago, who's just an angel investor. Why did we trust him? I had hosted a podcast with him for 3 years. So these weren't new investors. These were people I had known for years. And then we got Dan Tapiero, a fund called 10T, to lead the round. Why? Because we had known Dan for years. Dan had been really early supporter of Blockworks. Yeah. He'd been speaking at our events, and he believed in this connection of you got to bridge the old world with the new world.
Right.
And Blockworks, in his mind, was, and in our mind too, was the bridge that could do that.
Yeah, so I think you've proven that to be true. That's
trying,
so cool.
man, trying.
No, it's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. I think let's take a little bit of a step back. You mentioned the research and development arm. There's basically 4 arms to Blockworks, and then we can talk about you guys sort of becoming a data company. But I think it's really interesting. You mentioned the negative CAC model, right? Like, so you've got the conference arm that spins up the media arm, kind of in sequential order, and then you release this sort of research and development arm, and that's where that negative CAC sort of comes into play already when you launched that in 2022, right? Is that correct? Like, is that sort of...
Yeah, basically. So historically we're just a media business, right?
Yeah,
and
just sponsorship revenue.
Media and events, excuse me. So we had media, which drove into this, I guess at the bottom of the funnel was a product, which was our events.
Right.
And that actually worked really well, right? We went from like 200K in revenue to 2 to 3.5 to 12.5 to 25. It like, I can share other numbers too, but that was working really well. And we're spitting off a lot of cash flow, but we realized, look, if we want to, one day take this thing public or, whatever we end up doing with Blockworks, we need to build a research and data platform at the bottom of the funnel. The other reason for this was what the industry needed.
Right.
So if you look at what the industry needed from like, let's call it 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, it was like, we call it kind of soft information. It was like news and podcasts and newsletters, and it was things that helped an investor stay up to date.
Right.
As the institutional capital actually flooded into the industry, that institutional capital needed a platform. They needed what we call hard information,
right?
Like data and research. And they needed, it's like this part of the Blockworks keeps you informed. This part helps you make investment decisions. So, on the top of the funnel, like media, we have an audience of like, roughly 20 million people who are deeply crypto native, institutional capital, basically have a lot of money either on chain or invested in crypto. Middle of the funnel, we bring those people together in communities, right? We have communities for all of our brands, and we bring them together in person we own 2 of the biggest conferences in the industry, Digital Asset Summit and Permissionless. Those conferences, the media basically owns the distribution layer, builds trust in the industry. The events make a bunch of money and kick off a lot of the cash flow. Cash flow gets reinvested to hiring, product people and engineers, which is the bottom of the funnel, this research and data platform. So
I mean, I think you've said you guys sold when you launched it like more than $1 million worth of research and consulting when you launched the advisory arm. I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
So then we have another bucket which we only launched last year, which is advisory. So advisory, and this is very separate from research and data, I'd say, which is that research and data is this beautiful like recurring revenue. People like I don't know which customers, like a lot of the big hedge funds and financial institutions use buy our data basically and subscribe to the platform. What ended up happening is a lot of the protocols, the Uniswaps and Athena Labs and Arbitrums of the world, the biggest protocols in the world, started looking at our research and data team saying, hey, these guys know more about my company than my employees do. Can we hire them? And can we get their take on how do I run an incentive program? What should how should I spend my treasury? What should my budget be this year? How do I do a go-to-market plan? And that's what led to us. We have a 4th bucket called Blockworks Advisory. We launched it, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. It'll do several $1 million in its first year of business.
That's awesome.
And we go to the protocols. We basically help the protocols make better decisions. Data-driven decisions to build better businesses. You can think of it as more of an on-chain BCG, McKinsey, Bain, company like that.
Which again, only you guys can do this really because you are going so niche. And the only way you're able to do this without spending or raising a ton of money specifically for this is because you already had that trust, right?
Exactly.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about just like media in general and like just businesses in general. I think, by the way, I think this thing is so underrated, like the way you guys built Blockworks. I think you've said something like your advice for a first-time founder would be to start like a very niche B2B business and just curate the top 50 people in a very specific industry. Is that true? Like, would you still...
I would do, if I was 23 and starting over, I would basically pick an audience that a topic I was really, really interested in. Try to build something at the distribution layer. And distribution doesn't have to be big, right? Distribution can be 20 people.
47 page views.
Right, exactly. 47 page views. And it would be... like dinners, it'd be something in person. It would be dinners or events or something like that. I'd bring those people together and I'd figure out their pain point. And maybe their pain point is, for us, it was at the first couple of years, it was top of funnel information. It was like, we just need a way to stay up to date with the industry. And we skipped over this one part about in 2019, we were hosting these in 2018, these family office dinners with some of the wealthiest families allocating to crypto. And they gave us a really clear understanding of what the industry was missing, because we do 15 dinners with 15 family offices who are all allocating hundreds of millions to the industry, and they would tell us, hey, I want a podcast. I've got a tech podcast and finance podcast. Why don't I have a crypto podcast? So that kind of informs. So that's what I would do if I was a new entrepreneur. I would starting off. I would probably try to get the most influential people in the room together via cold emails, cold DMs, whatever it takes to basically get these people in the room and start building a community and then build products off of that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that is literally what you guys basically did, right? Like, so that's
I also think like, I see a lot of people using these AI tools. Now is the best time to build a company in the history of the world, right? You can build a company for
barely any money.
99% cheaper than you used to be able to build it. The first wave of this was probably, moving from on-prem to the cloud, and SaaS businesses and Salesforces of the world.
Yep.
Next wave was like empowering people who don't really know how to code with like no code, like Squarespace and things like that. Our first website was Webflow and then Squarespace. The third wave that we're on right now is this AI wave, which is, I mean, you can go on Replit or Cursor,
instantly,
V0, build a full, not even just you used to be able to build a functioning website with something like Squarespace. You can build a full functioning product and app, right, without knowing any code. You don't have to know JavaScript, HTML, CSS. You can go build a full functioning app in a day. Now's the best time to build a product. The problem that these entrepreneurs are going to run into is really good products will get commoditized. The really amazing products were the value, I think, in the last 10 years. Now it's going to be so easy to go fork a good product or just build a good product that the two most valuable things end up becoming proprietary data,
right,
and proprietary distribution.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's really important. So proprietary data, a very tough thing to start with. Proprietary distribution, much easier thing to start with.
Right. I mean, that data is what you guys are doing, right? Like right now. So that's super interesting. So basically, just to sum it up, it's like just follow your curiosity, find the most influential people in the field or topic you're most interested in, like whatever random thing that is, and then just start curating dinners and just a community for them to sort of see what do they need. Let's sort of build up this distribution of trust with them and build a media business sort of that way, and then launch something that's more, you know, proprietary with data or something like that.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I see there's all these like big newsletters that have started, right? So they've got, you know, maybe hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers. The next thing for them to do, so they've got the proprietary distribution. That's amazing that they've been able to do that. But eventually that business runs out of steam.
Right.
Or, you know, maybe, but I think it does. It runs out of steam.
It's a plateau at least.
I would be thinking, exactly. I would be thinking if I were them, you've got proprietary distribution. How do I build proprietary data on top of that?
Yeah.
Well, you've got 1 million followers or subscribers.
Go ask them.
Go ask them. Go ask them. Excuse me. There's 1 million businesses you could build off, 1 million different proprietary data sets.
Right.
You can build off of them. So I'd start by building these proprietary databases and data sets off of those people. It could be first party data about your users. It could be their personal preferences. You could go. There's so much that you could go build off of.
I think the interesting thing there is like, one, when you start off with data first, like you don't have that information of actually what to build. How did you guys, like at Blockworks, was it again like getting pulled out of you? Where like, okay, this is the data these people really need to start making better decisions, or?
No, definitely not. This was actually a thesis. So in crypto, there are 3 different types of data, 3 different really important types of data. There's market data, social sentiment data, and on-chain data. Market data would be, I don't know if you are into crypto or not, but like would be like if Coinbase.
Yep.
OKX, Bybit, Binance, like the exchanges own the data. Very similar to TradFi data, where NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange own the data. This is like tick data, volumes, open interest, derivatives data, things like that. That's market data. Then there's social sentiment data. How are people on Twitter feeling?
Right.
Are people feeling greedy, fearful? The fear and greed index. That's social sentiment data. We thought that there was a bucket of data that the whole industry was missing,
right? Which
was on-chain data. And the thesis behind this was that if you look at the industry from the first 5 years of the industry, there were no companies, right? 2009 to, let's call it 2015. There were no industries. It's just Bitcoin. Then you get 2015, Ethereum launches, and now what happens is you can basically launch tokens. So all these tokens start launching. So with the launch of tokens, you get the centralized, what people call them CeFi, centralized financial companies. The custodians, the exchanges, the lending borrowing platforms, Coinbase, BitGo, Anchorage, Fireblocks, those kind of companies.
Yep.
They built great businesses. They raised a lot of money. Coinbase is a public company now. A bunch of them raised $1 billion valuations. The next wave of these companies, so that was from, let's say, 2015 to 2020.
Okay.
In 2020, DeFi summer happened, which was all these DeFi protocols actually started getting users, led by this one called Uniswap. And if you're a traditional investor and you look at this thing called Uniswap, it's this weird, esoteric, smart contract, right?
What does that mean?
It doesn't make sense. It's like just pie in the sky. It's like trying to explain what the cloud was,
right?
In the like 20 years ago. It's like, I don't see anything up there. How's my data up there?
Yeah.
And that's how traditional investors treat these protocols today.
Right.
But when we look at the protocols, you can actually, because they're all on blockchains, right? They're built on things like Ethereum and Solana and Base. You can actually, all the data of these companies is public, and that's the on-chain data, right? So when we look at the on-chain data, I can actually see, hey, these things are getting more and more users every day, and they actually are spitting off a bunch of cash flow.
Right.
So now I can start to build what looks like a P&L for Uniswap, and I can start to build, the real economic value, which is a metric that we created here, of something like Solana and Ethereum. And so I can start to, anyways, that's what we're very excited about, this thing called on-chain data, because we think that's the most important data set in the industry.
Yeah, and that doesn't really exist right now, or if it does exist, it's in many different places and not very well aggregated.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you guys bring the trust element that, like, people have trusted you. You've been doing this, nearly a decade now, so that helps a lot. I feel like that's super dangerous though. Like, how long did that thesis take to cultivate, or like, what signals did you see that sort of gave you conviction to actually like say, okay, this is the data? Because I feel like, the data is already out there. Like, that's super hard decision to make, because a lot of the time when I see like, data businesses, that start from a data perspective, it's like, nobody actually gives a shit about this data. It's like, no one cares. Like, how did you, is it because you cared and you guys are so, within the industry?
We were so deep into it's
like solving a problem you guys had?
That was the problem we had. Yeah, exactly. It was a personal problem. So we would see on-chain data that other people were posting from other, I'll put quotes around this, like data companies, and it was wrong. It was just wrong. So now, again, if our audience is the investor allocating to crypto assets, those investors need data. They're now receiving wrong data, which then drives, it actually has all these secondary impacts, which is it's driving the wrong valuations of these companies. It's driving the wrong prices. The price discovery is off.
Yep.
So these investors needed the right data,
and you guys bring that. Like,
and so now we are. But it took 2 and coming up on 3. It'd been building this for basically 3 years.
Yeah.
The data side of the business, and so it's taken a very long time. It was the first. We got very convicted early on that on-chain data was right. The scary thing was, everything that we've ever done at Blockworks has been profitable.
Right.
This was the first time that we ever said, look, let's start to eat into some of these margins. Let's start to eat into, basically pull up the costs, hire engineers who are, expensive, and hire data analysts and research analysts.
Especially in New York.
Yeah, exactly. And let's take a bet on the future.
Yeah.
So
how's that playing out so far? It's February 2025. Like,
yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's
going. Is there anything you can share, like signal wise, or?
Yeah, we just had the best. Q4 was the best quarter in history. Q1 will be bigger than Q4, so Q1 will be the best quarter in history.
That's awesome.
The path to 100 million in revenue is like pretty clear at this point.
Yeah.
We went from 3 years ago, all of the revenue was events and digital advertising. 2 years ago is probably 90-10. Last year was probably, I don't know, 85-15, and this year we're getting to like a third probably, with
really?
like,
and that's something gonna
ARR, like data research and data business, digital advertising and events, and pretty soon I think next year will be at 50-50
from the data business.
Yeah, so the data business is just easily the fastest growing area of the business.
That's fascinating.
And it's the thing that the tradition. So if you look at what's happening, you have nation states buying Bitcoin, you have BlackRock launching, you have financial institutions launching crypto products. Bank of America CEO this week said that they're going to launch a stablecoin. Stripe just acquired a stablecoin company for $1 billion.
Yeah.
They all need data.
Yeah.
They all need data. They all need to see what's actually happening on chain, and they're all coming to Blockworks right now.
Yeah. What sort of similar data businesses have you looked at as comparisons? Just at the data perspective, right? Like, ignore the media side for a second, because I feel like, this is from an outsider's perspective. I feel like that type of data, it's so integrate into into a decision. Like, you're not going to pull that out.
You don't pull it out. Yeah, no. Exactly. So
pull
if
out
you look
games
at
weak, very weak.
Yeah, exactly. So we've hired a lot of people on our team who are ex hedge fund folks, and they all used to use the Bloomberg terminal. So the Bloomberg terminal is the example of just a data.
Finance.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying we're going to go build Google or Apple, because I think Bloomberg's one of the 5 best businesses in the world today.
Yeah.
$9 billion in recurring revenue, another $1 billion
One guy
from
owns
the media.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Bloomberg probably owns still 70% of the business or something. Yeah. But we do look at the stickiness of a data product, of a finance. There's also Refinitiv, got bought for several $1 billion, maybe more than that I think actually much more than that by Thomson Reuters. There is we kind of separate it into two buckets. So there's the platform, right? The platform is like where you log in and you access a lot of data on the platform. The two best comparables for that are probably FactSet and CapIQ.
Okay.
Probably FactSet the most would be the most. And that's
they don't supply their own data.
They have their own data, but they also aggregate data. Okay. But you log into the platform, just like for us, like you log into our research and data platform.
Yeah.
We're going to give you research reports.
Yeah.
We give you data. We give you charts. You can build your own charts, all that kind of stuff. Then some people just want the data in raw form. Maybe it's CSV, maybe it's JSON, maybe it's an API. Yeah. Those are the data players. And so we look at the raw data providers in the traditional capital markets world. I mean, to buy data from NASDAQ, $20 million a year, just by data from NASDAQ alone, right? For one customer.
Yeah.
So we look at the data providers. We also look at the like research and data platforms, right? Which is it's really one product. It's
just segmented a little
do you
bit.
want to go to the platform to log in? Do you want to receive the data in your own environment?
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. How what does a pitch look like when you're trying to sell a $20 million contract on data? It has to be inbound, surely, right? Or do you have a sales team for?
Yeah, we have 11 people on the sales team at Blockworks. We have 2 account managers, and we have 9 sellers.
But mainly for media or for?
So we don't think of it like that. Actually, we take an account view at Blockworks. So we have each seller has 100. I mean, if you want, I don't know how tactical you want to get.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it. Yeah.
So each seller has 125 accounts.
Okay.
They are judged. They are supposed to be best friends with those 125 accounts.
Right.
So we used to have it so that it's kind of a free for all. You could have hundreds of accounts. Now you're capped at 125. You can swap in accounts. If you see a new account, company just raised 50 million, you can grab it, but you have to drop one account. So that then goes into the Satoshi. It's in our CRM. It's owned by the owner of Satoshi, and you can grab any account from Satoshi.
Yeah. You're
capped at 125 accounts. You need to know the needs and pain points of that account better than anybody in the world.
Right.
So if let's say your account is KPMG.
Okay.
Or Coinbase.
Yep.
Right. Let's say it's Coinbase. Let me show you the different examples of things that Coinbase could spend money on with us. Their institutional team might want to meet hedge funds that own Bitcoin and are currently interested in Ethereum staking.
Yep.
Right. No way to reach them except for talking to Blockworks. They're going to buy sponsorships at our Digital Asset Summit, and they're going to buy webinars. Their retail team might want to reach new college graduates to have people sign up for Coinbase. They're going to sponsor ads on the podcast, ads in the newsletter. Their developer, Coinbase CDP, Coinbase Developer Platform, wants to get in front of developers. They're going to get involved at our technical developer event called Permissionless.
Yep.
Base, their on-chain, their own blockchain that they created. They want to meet app builders, people building applications to go build on Base. They're going to get involved at also Permissionless probably to meet the app builders. Then all across the business, they need research and data. Maybe their product team needs to understand like what areas of the business are growing quickly so they can make product decisions. Their listings team for the exchange needs to figure out which assets and tokens to list. So they need to access our research. A bunch of other teams need to access on-chain data. So I could bore you to death by giving the examples, but this is how you get a $70K deal combines with $150K sponsorship, combines with $100K of recurring revenue for the data, combines with 10 different seats that they want to access, and boom, you've got $1 million deal. So, but it's all driven by the pain points of the organization, which one seller owns the Coinbase account.
Yeah.
And then we've got product and team leads across the company. So we've got someone who runs advisory, someone who runs the data business, someone who runs research, someone who runs events.
And they come in then for
They come in to join the sale.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that actually, I don't know many companies that do it like that, but it actually makes a lot of sense. It's like you should know the pain points of your customer extremely well. And so actually having like 10 different people work on Coinbase, for example, like that's just gonna, you're not gonna be able to get to that level of depth with them.
I was at it actually came from, I was at there's a very traditional SaaS model, which is different than this, which would say all your sellers need to be experts in their own products.
Right.
And they need to basically bring those products to different accounts. So like Salesforce, for example, right? You might have a seller for Marketo, for Salesforce, for Pardot, for all their different products. And they're taking it to the account. I sat next to a guy who runs one of the divisions at Accenture. He's got 100,000 not direct reports, 100,000 employees work under him.
Yep.
He's one of the 5 P&L owners at Accenture. And this is how Accenture does it. And they've got a very account-based view. And so we've kind of copied that model. And when those people, basically the people at Accenture, live inside of the organizations that they're selling to, their accounts. Cool. They almost spend more time with their accounts than they do it internally at the company.
Yeah.
And then they're bringing it to different people. They're just trying to spot opportunities inside of the company.
That's an amazing job. Like, just get really deep into a company, get paid to just say, like, hey, they got a problem here. We could probably fix that.
That's what Blockworks does. Yeah.
That feels like a really tough job to hire for. I want to talk about your airport test for hiring, because I thought it was hilarious. That kind of ties into this. Like, this seems like a very hard role to hire for. And in general, hiring, I think, is probably very, very tough. How do you go about finding someone for a role like this? Like, you need to probably have someone incredibly enthusiastic. They need to be able to understand like all the services you guys offer, which is, it's getting quite complex.
Yeah.
How do you filter and hire for someone in a role like that, for the sales role or the account management role?
The most important trait that we look for at Blockworks is curiosity. The industry moves far too quickly to hire people who are not deeply curious, I would say. So we find people, I ask people in interviews, like, what's a recent Wikipedia rabbit hole they've gone down, right? You're trying to pull out the natural curiosity of people.
That's a great question.
We hire deeply crypto native people.
Yeah.
Crypto is a weird industry because it's, you go to healthcare and you go to finance, and like, it's not someone's identity. It's not like someone who works in, I don't know, big pharma, or someone who works at like Salesforce. Like, Salesforce is not their identity, right? No. Crypto is still a small enough industry with this really hardcore, like, kind of unique ethos to it, where crypto is someone's identity. Yeah. It is part of them, that like, it is their personality that they work for better and for worse, by the way. But you can get the rap of like crypto bros and things like that. But for better or for worse, that is the identity. And we hire people who are deeply crypto native and who love the industry and who want to basically throw themselves into the industry. And we hire, and so we've got other values at Blockworks. Leave your ego at the door, write the rules. There's no playbook, things like that. But deeply curious, deeply crypto native, and just we've got this airport test that you mentioned, which is, if like
very logical. Actually.
Yeah, it's very logical. If you get stuck, it's the airport test, which is if you get stuck with someone at the airport. Let's say you're at the airport, you're traveling on a work trip with them. Your plane gets delayed 6 hours. Are you excited to go to the airport bar and drink some beers with them, or are you not excited? And I want everyone at Blockworks everyone at Blockworks passes the airport test right now. If I was at the airport with anyone at Blockworks, our flight got canceled, I'd be like, let's go. Sweet. I get to go spend a couple hours at the airport bar and have some beers. It sounds great.
Let's just hang out.
Yeah, exactly. So
delay the flight a little longer.
Exactly. Push it to tomorrow. Honestly,
we don't want to go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
awesome.
Everyone passes the airport test. Thankfully.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that one. I was working with a couple of people just on freelance. I was like, this does not pass the test. Like, we're gonna figure this out.
You can feel it in your gut a little bit.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah, you know.
One last thing. I think I've taken up a lot of your time already. But one last thing. Bring back the hiring thing, because I think it's so essential to building a company. Today, people leave Bloomberg and all these types of companies to join Blockworks, right? A couple of years ago, like, what was that like, right? Like, it's just you and Mike. You maybe just graduated from the dorm room. What's that pitch look like? Because I imagine that, you didn't fundraise, right? So you can't just say, hey, here's like $30K a month, like, like just throw money at it.
People bought, I think we both had some imposter syndrome at the beginning, because we were hiring, we were 23 and 24 and 25, and we were hiring 30 and 40 and 50 year olds. And it was really tough to hire at the beginning, because we were these, basically children, who were, trying to hire people who were like our parents' ages. And the thing that flipped everything, I think, was people use logic to justify decisions. They use emotion to make the decision. So maybe differently put, if you are selling something to someone, the thing that you should always lead with is the emotional driver. get someone excited, get someone bought in, and then the thing that you will use to justify your excitement ends up being logic and data and things like that. We didn't understand this for the first couple of years. So we would lead with logic.
Right.
We just went from 200K to 2 million in revenue.
Yeah.
That does nothing. When you flip the script of talking about Blockworks, and because we deeply believe in the vision and the mission of the company, when you lead with the mission and the vision of the company and then use logic, like, oh, our revenue's growing, to back it up, that's how we were able to get the talent that we're able to get.
Yeah. Get the belief to tell the story, really, like, hey, this is just the vehicle to sort of pursue that belief.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Sweet. I mean, is there anything we should still talk about? I mean, I know we only touched on a little bit on the data side of things, but anything you want to touch on still? I could sit here for hours.
Yeah. No, I would just no, I mean, the thing I think about a lot is just like, what is the role of a founder as a company grows? And I know you're interviewing founders on this journey of a podcast. And I think like this is year 8 of doing this. And I think I picture like I always think of like a rowboat as being a founder is like, kind of leading this rowboat. There's you got to set the strategy, right? So it's like, I don't know, let's say there's a bunch of islands out there. It's like, which island are you rowing to? Which landmass are you going to? That's set the vision, set the strategy. Then you got to get everyone in your rowboat rowing together, right? So if someone's rowing over here and someone's rowing over here, so you got to get them rowing together. So set the vision, set the strategy, basically get everyone rowing in the same direction, moving together, which usually comes from very clearly aligned incentives and goals.
Right.
And then once everyone's rowing together, set the speed and set the pace.
Right. Push people.
Yeah, exactly. Get the company to move faster. So, yeah, that's just something I was thinking about right before this, is just like, what is the role of a founder? And I think
that's true in any stage of the company.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But I would also just say the reason I did this is because you created this book, and man, it just like reminds me a lot of early days of Blockworks doing things that don't scale.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna have a bunch of founders probably not listening to this boring episode, but other future episodes, and the other great advice is like, it's very cheesy at this point, but like, do things that don't scale. And so, I get probably 1 or 2 emails a week to go join podcasts, and usually don't just say no to all of them. And this book is the reason I did it. So just hats off to you, and congrats on everything.
I appreciate it. Well, I mean, Blockworks, I've been in the office a little bit now. It's fucking awesome. Yeah. And this started with, 4 a.m. LinkedIn cold messages, right? And that's not even that long ago. Yeah. So, man, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thanks for everything.
Sweet. No, thank you.